Canaanites, and Egyptians. Now, among those people that came from the West Africa slave trade, there might be some that are Israelites as well. But for the most part, in the bigger bulk of the people that came on those boats are not Israelites, but Canaanites and Egyptians, right? So that's basically what we've been bringing out. And, today we're going to bring out the history information, both prophetic, archaeological, and historical as well, to prove the case. People from the slave trade are not Hebrew Israelites. West Africans are not Israelites, but Canaanites and Egyptians. Now, among those people that came from the West Africa slave trade, there might be some that are Israelites as well. But for the most part, in the bigger bulk of the people that came on those boats are not Israelites, but Canaanites and Egyptians.
Shut up! Shut up!
Shalom to the Yakim. All they know is that we're Native Americans. Where's our history at? Where's our history at? Where's our history at? Where's our history at?
Still here at the 49th annual Passover with the ISUPK, celebrating the Lord's Passover, the Passover to be at. If you didn't make it down here, you missed out. Blacks, Hispanics, Native American Indians under one roof, putting it down in peace, the way the Lord needs to have us, in brotherhood.
Where's our history at? Where's our history at?
Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share my Ancestry DNA result. And oftentimes in my life as a child and then even as an adult, people will stop me and ask if I am Asian specifically. So then the second highest concentration for me is 22% Native American, spanning North, Central, and South America. This is by far the most fascinating part of my results for me because, like I mentioned, my mom is Colombian, 100% Colombian. That side of the family is Colombian in our practices and our food and our language and our culture, and it's a very big part of who we are. And so to see that breakdown even further is just so interesting. We've always kind of known that we were tribal and native to Colombia, but to see it be such a large concentration is a very interesting way to look at a place like Colombia, because it's been heavily settled and colonized, and so obviously it's a very mixed place. And then of course you have a lot of immigrants going to Colombia, so Colombia in and of itself is very diverse. So to see how diverse we are within that is just so cool. So along those same lines, the third highest concentration for me is 18% Iberian Peninsula. Iberian Peninsula is Spain and Portugal. Not really surprising once you understand Colombia and the history of a country like Colombia, but still cool nonetheless. And then the fourth highest is 12% Europe West. Specifically, Europe West includes Belgium, France, Germany, Netherlands, Switzerland, Luxembourg, and Liechtenstein.
People from the slave trade are not Hebrew Israelites. West Africans are not Israelites, but Canaanites and Egyptians.
Shut up! How can you be better than me? Shut up! Shut up!
We are part of the Ga Adangwes, and most of the things we do are just like they do as well. So we're believed to have migrated from Israel.
Can you say that again? Just the way you said it. Just the same way.
We are part of the Ga Adangwes. We are part of the Ga Adangwes. We are part of the Ga Adangwes.
We are part of the Ga Adangwes. We are part of the Ga Adangwes.
Wow! That's all I have to say to you, brothers and sisters. I pray you hang in there.
What I want people to know is that don't support the phonies. Support the real. You know what I mean? How can these people be talking about how they so real and they don't care about our communities? How can they be talking about what they, all this, you know, the hood, blah, 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 blah. They don't care about our communities. You know what I mean? Listen to the words that people say in their lyrics and tell me if that's some real, if that's real to you. You know what I mean? Listen to what they saying. Don't just bob your head to the beat. Peep the game and listen to what I'm saying and hold us accountable for it.
All right, so first question. Have you ever heard of Native Americans being one of the lost tribes of Israel? So, first question. Have you ever heard of Native Americans being one of the lost tribes of Israel?
Yes, actually. My dad was a pastor and he would say that. They were one of the lost tribes. Yeah, he believed that.
Did he mention which tribe in particular?
No, he just said natives. He believes natives in a whole is a lost tribe of Judah.
It's a lying piece of shit.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Holy Bible, the King James Version. The first book of Moses, called Genesis, chapter 49.
Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last.
We are part of the Ga Adangwes, and most of the things we do are just like they do as well. So we are believed to have migrated from Israel to Accra, the coastal area of Ghana.
And the migration story of the people of the Adangwes was that almost all the ethnic groups in Ghana migrated from somewhere before the early, let's say, 15th century.
Okay.
Our history goes deeper. In fact, the ancient Ghana Empire that even inspired our first president to take the name Ghana was a vast territory. It engulfs almost the whole of the sub-Saharan western part of Africa, right after the desert. Yeah. That shows you how vast the indigenous people have traveled all the way before they come and settle here. So the different tribes, the different ethnic groups within the Greater Accra got these differences through the migration patterns they used before they arrived here in the place we call Accra. The Adangwes and the people of the Gans, the people who speak Gan, the Adangwes speak a different dialect known as the Dangbe. The Dangbe is like a sister country to the Gan language. And they've written book and they have a history, especially the indigenous people of here have a direct history of migration through Israel. Especially the indigenous people of here have a direct history of migration through Israel, especially the indigenous people of here have a direct history of migration through Israel. Especially the indigenous people of here have a direct history of migration through Israel. In fact, our festivals we are about to celebrate somewhere in August. It's celebrated, it's known as Homowo. We call it the Houtina Hanga.
Okay.
It talks about some of the history of while they were migrating to this present stage they call La or Greater Accra.
Okay.
They encountered a lot of hunger. Once they made a walk, they transited through Nigeria all the way from Israeli-Palestine border, migrated all the way before they came to settle here. So I'm just telling you this to know how far we've came from before we arrived here.
Okay.
So it tells you we have a huge history. Yeah.
And then the history of La, because I know it as Labadi.
Yeah.
Labadi Beach is a famous
in fact,
kind of
the
place.
history of the reason why we call it Bad, I talked about briefly. It's mainly the people call themselves LA La. But during the colonial administration time, in fact, when you drive away from here, you see one of the plush cities of the city, the plush buildings, we call it the residential areas in Accra. You see beautiful houses, well-paved streets. You don't need, the communities are more plush than here. This is where the low-income community, the low-income workers live. When you drive a little bit from, let's say northward, you see beautiful houses. And during colonial administration, that was where the British settlers or the governors or
so they took land from
they took
the people
a lot
here.
of land from the indigenous people by here, the Dangbes, but especially the people of La, this community. They own one of the biggest portions of land in Accra.
But it was appropriated.
By the British colonial administration.
And what was the reaction of the people?
In fact, the people here are warriors. So they feel very insulted by foreigners who just come from nowhere and just occupy their most precious jewel treasures, land. So in fact they got infuriated with this and they started to fight and rebel against these cruel administrators who wanted to steal their treasures. So they were so much aggressive in fighting these British grabbers. So in fact, many of the things they did to the British decided to label them as bad people. So this community became known as Labadi, based on the way the British continuously tried to describe them as bad. So even the name La was forgotten, and they always use the term Badi. So the people, even unconsciously, a lot of people don't know this history. So people, even when you want directions to here, let's say you're coming from Kumasi and you want to visit somebody right here in Accra,
say Labadi.
You say Labadi. Unconsciously, you are referring to the bad name the British.
So are you teaching the children this history then?
Yeah, in fact I try to make it popular to the kids so that they will know the history. All the kids, a lot of the communities don't even know this, so it needs a lot of bigger platform of education and information before the people will make consciousness.
They do this yearly. The same thing here. They enact the Exodus story. This is the same thing. What she has there is a lamp. She has something that looks like a kettle. It's a plastic kettle. And they're dressed up. And she has the staff in her hand. And they do this every year. Every year they enact the Exodus story. So like I said, it's not just a story that took place, that you read in the book, but this actually happened. What you have here is a group of elders going to do what we call the wine offering, the libation. They're going to be pouring libation. We'll explain that in a video shortly. This is the same thing. So the story goes like we're able to cook with just one piece of wood. And that is what they're doing here. All they need is this one plank of wood and they can make a whole meal. because that is how we actually survived also in the wilderness. And they're carrying the stools, coming to start the enactment of the Exodus. I want to focus on what they're holding in their hands. Does anyone have a staff here? There's one here. Okay, I think there's one here. Do we know what this is? Are you sure? Let's read Exodus 4 carefully. And Yahweh said to him, that is, Yahweh said to Moshe, what is this in your hand? And he said, a staff. And he said, cast it down. It won't turn into a snake, I can promise you that. He said, cast it down. And Moses cast it down. And it turned into a serpent. And Moses fled from it. Yah tells him, no, don't flee. Come towards it and pick it up. And when he did, it turned back into a staff. This is where the little Hebrew gets in. That word for staff, mater, is the same word for tribe. I'll repeat that, you didn't get it. That word for a staff is the same word for a tribe. What was he telling him? It's me? Say something. Very good. Pharaoh cast us down as serpents. He cast down the tribe of Israel. Those were the tribes. And he tells them, when he cast it down, he runs away from it. He says, no, don't run away from it. Pick it up. So he picks it up and they become a staff again. But they're really the tribes of Israel. Wow. So on Passover, he says, when you eat in your meal, I want you to hold the tribes in your hands. Not just a staff. It represents the tribes of Israel. So at the crossing of the Red Sea, Moshe is scared. When you read the text, read it slowly. When they saw the Egyptians coming, he turned to the people and told them not to be afraid. And then he turns around to go pray to Yah. And Yah says, why do you turn to pray to me? Tell Israel that they move forward. Where? Into the sea? He says, tell them that they move forward. And I want you to stretch the staff over. Stretch Israel, stretch the tribes over the water and see what happens. And the water parts. So when we hold this staff, we treat it with respect. Because what you hold in your hands is precious. It represents a nation. It's not just a staff. just wanted to share that with you. We're not holding pistols. It represents Israel. Awesome. When Joseph came down to Egypt, and finally Jacob is coming down with the rest of the family to Egypt, Joseph had a concern. What was his concern? He did not want Israel to assimilate with the Egyptians. So he came up with an idea. He said, I'm going to tell Pharaoh that you guys stay in Goshen. Joseph was the first person to create what we call a ghetto. The reason why Joseph created the ghetto is because he did not want Israel to assimilate with the Egyptians and become Egyptian. For a long time, they were living in Goshen. And then as they became many, they started coming into the inland, into the city. And that is when they started getting assimilated. I'm going to focus on my tribe for a second, and then I would, during the migration route, I'll talk about the Levites and the Judah. Okay. I'll be quick. So it says, your servants have been owners of livestock from our youth until now, both we and our ancestors, so that you may dwell in the land of Goshen. He did not want them to mix with the Egyptians and become assimilated. So he says, I want you to stay in Goshen. It worked for a while, and then everything got messed up. The tribe of Gad, my tribe, we had a thing for Ethiopian women. So most of us married Ethiopian women. So when we were migrating back, when the Assyrians came in, but let me say this first. When Moshe came in to take us out of Egypt, there were people already migrating out of Egypt before Moshe came. Some people were already going out. When Moshe came and took us out, it was not everybody that went to Sinai with Moshe. Some migrated and went up to Ethiopia. There were already people migrating to the coast of West Africa before 70 AD, way before 70 AD. Okay. But I'm going to start the narrative, the migration during 70 AD when we started leaving out. So my tribe, the tribe of Gad, we had a thing for Ethiopian women, so we married a lot of Ethiopian women. When we got to Ethiopia, we stayed there for a long time because we married their women. This picture here that you see it, on the left seated here is Ni Otu Akwete. He is the king of one of the 7 houses of the people of God. The one seated next to him is Ni Tete Otu. He's also the head or the king of the other tribes, the other houses. And the person standing in the blue is Ni Ajay Kraku, is also one of the elders or the chiefs of one of the other tribes. So there's 7 tribes, and you have 3 of the elders sitting and standing with a very beautiful lady. She is the great granddaughter of the Queen of Sheba. She came to West Africa, to the Gadaks, the Gadangbe group, looking for her blood relations. And she came all the way to the Gad chiefs because they have it in their history that we were there for a while. They have it in their history that we married their women. So she came looking for her blood relations. and she met with the chiefs of the Gadangbe's, the Gadites. This is why when I say what I'm telling you is not a Bible story, it is history. Information that we can prove, that we can back up with evidence. Awesome. So let's start from Ethiopia. These children of God that migrated to Abyssinia grew up and had children of their own and became huge in numbers. So I'm giving you the story before 70 AD, I want to focus on that group. The reason why we want to focus on the people who migrated without being pushed out is because they migrated on their own accord, meaning that they kept their tradition, they kept their customs, they kept their tongue intact. They were not pushed out. They left looking for a better land. They left because they wanted to flourish somewhere else. They left sometimes because they wanted better places to farm. So they're living in the original state. Nobody has changed their history. Nobody has messed with their tongue. We want to focus on those people because they give us a lot of information that is not watered down. So that's why they are very key. So in Ethiopia, we stayed there for a while and then we flourished. They stayed at the bank of the Nile River, which we call Nilo. So when you hear somebody from West Africa say we were at the Nilo River, the place where the Blue Nile originates, they're talking about the Nile. There was a bit of strife between these Hebrews and the indigenous people, and because they were growing in number, they decided to look for land of their own. So the people of the land of Abyssinia, they accommodated the Hebrews for a while, but as usual, if you're living on someone's land, there's always strife. So when that happened, we decided to leave Abyssinia and go look for land of our own. So they left Kush and they journeyed along the banks of the river through Meroe in Sudan. I'm not showing you the maps. I want you to write down the names so that when you go home you can do that homework. Type in Meroe in Google and look at the map. So now you can trace the route. So they left Kush and they journeyed along the banks of the river through Meroe in Sudan. From Meroe, they traveled to a place where they met a tributary. So you have the two rivers joining. That flows into the Nile. The Arabs that they met there called that place Baal el Ghazal. So from Abyssinia, they came to Meroe, and then they came to a place called Baal el Ghazal. The land in Baal el Ghazal was a little muddy, so you couldn't really do that much there. If your people migrated, you want better land. So at Baal el Ghazal, the sand was muddy. So the groups decided to move to the hills and settle at the place called Lake Chad. What happened there was interesting. When they were leaving Baal el Ghazal, they divided themselves into three groups. One group went down to the Congo. So you have Hebrews in the Congo today. One group went out to the Congos. Another group also branched out and they became lost to us. We don't know where they went to. We've traced them to South Africa. So you have Hebrews, Gadites in South Africa. Gone. See this? So they divided themselves again into three groups and migrated to Lake Chad. So the group that went to Congo stayed there. The second group that went lost to us, that we've located in South Africa, also left. Now the main group that was left, they divided themselves into three groups and they went up to Lake Chad. Please write these places down and then look for them on Google. They went to Lake Chad. They stayed there for 70 years. so that they can rest, they can flourish, they can have children, so that they can continue. And that is how they migrated. You walk, they did not have cars or aeroplanes, they were walking on foot. So you walk when you're tired, you stay somewhere. If the land was good for farming, for fishing, you stay put there for a while. You rest, you have more children, and then you can move on. So they stayed at Lake Chad for 70 years. They left Lake Chad after 70 years, coming down the valley. They came to a river called Benue. This river is still in Nigeria today. Let me say this. When you look on the African continent and you see the country, Ghana, Togo, Benin, Nigeria, those are artificial boundaries that came about in 1844. What we call it's not Rambo. Something for Africa. I forgot the name. The Scramble for Africa. That is when the colonial masters came and then they demarcated their territories. So, to start, you have to remove those imaginary lines. When we were migrating, there was no place called Nigeria. There was no place called Togo, Ghana. No, it was nothing like that. All you had was empty land. So from Lake Chad, we came to a place called Benue. Now we had to cross that river called Benue to a place called Lokoja. Somebody Nigerian here? Okay. Yoruba, awesome. So they had to cross that Benue River to a place called Lokoja. Lokoja is in modern day Nigeria today. Lokoja is a very old town. Very old town. From Lokoja, we divided ourselves into 3 groups. One went to Ile-Ife. Another group went to Ogbomosho. The third group went to Bonny. They are all in present day Nigeria. My sister is saying yes because she knows those places. So 3 groups. One went to Ile-Ife. The second went to Ogbomosho. The third settled at Bonny. So you have these 3 places: Lokoja, Ile-Ife, Ogbomosho, Bonny. They are all in present day Nigeria. Awesome. The name the people there called us when we got there, they called us Game, meaning people of God, or Ganyo, meaning Gadites. This is important because if the people we met there testify that we are the Hebrews, it's important. Because that is how we introduce ourselves to them. We did not tell them we were Hamites or Egyptians. We told them where we were coming from, and they called us the Gadites. This is the name that they gave to us, because that's what we told them. Awesome. So we stayed 70 years in Lokoja, Ogbomosho, Bonny, Ile-Ife, before moving on. Those who settled at Ile-Ife called themselves Gamashi, meaning that the Gadites will leave. We were telling our host, we're just passing through. We're not here to stay. We don't want your land. We're going to find land on our own. So we say Gamashi, meaning the Gadites will leave. Those who settled in Ogbomosho call themselves Gamwo, meaning that we are the Gadites. We are God. Like I said, this is important because during these migration routes, or during this migration, we knew who we were. And we were identifying as such. Okay. Those who settled in Bonny call themselves La. La means fire. That group are very harsh. When you meet them in Ghana today, you would know that these are the guys. They are very harsh, just by their name, La. What they did was, because they lived in Bonny, they took the La and added it to Bonny, and they called themselves La Bonny. We've westernized it. When you go to Ghana today, and you go to a place called Laboni, because when the Europeans came, they couldn't say the Bonnet, they called it Boni. So when you go to Ghana and you see Laboni, it is reminding us of the place that we stayed during the migration route. So we've kept the names of these cities also. You can actually see the names in our settlements today. What you are witnessing, let me go back. In Ile Ife, I told you we stayed there for a while. Recently, the chief or the king of Ile Ife paid us a visit in Ghana. And his message was, when you came to our land, we fed you, we clothed you. You told us you were leaving to go find land for yourself. But when you got there and you settled down, you hadn't come back to tell us that, hey, we got to the place that we're going. So we've taken the initiative to come and find our brothers that we helped some time back to see if they found better land to settle in. This is why the king of Ile Ife came all the way to Ghana looking for the Gadites that they met when they were migrated. I'm going to show you the video and I'm going to translate and explain certain things that you see on here. So they're doing the drumming and dancing as usual, the same thing we're doing here. I want to play everything, but I want you to watch. These are the elders, they're dancing. Everything he's doing has meaning. What he's doing, he's not dancing, he's communicating. If you understand what he's doing, you will understand what he's saying. So he says the king of Ile Ife calls on the Ga chiefs. That is the king here. You see he's holding something in his hand. Okay. He's holding the same stuff, the rope. So those are the elders coming in. What is he blowing? Oh, sorry. So I can't tell you what they're saying. When my chief starts speaking, I'll tell you what he's saying. You see he's prostrated on the floor. If you read your Torah, you will notice that when Abraham was doing the purchase for the land to bury Sarah, he does the same thing. Anytime they got further through the negotiations, he would prostrate. as a warrior, he's actually going to give permission so that these two kings can start speaking. So this is my chief pouring libation. This is the wine offering that you read about. Notice how he's doing it. He has the little calabash and he's doing it this way. I'll explain it when he's done. These are the women. They play a very key role. Okay, I translate. He says, tell the king of Ile-Ife. He wants to thank him. When they counted the days, we know what they've done for us. And they know what we've done for them. Yes. He came to visit us, we welcome him. When you look at the history, when you look at the Torah, when we were migrating, we came to their house. They welcomed us. They gave us food. They gave us water. And then we left. When we came to Ghana, we didn't go back to say thank you. But they have come. Yes, they've come as angels to come and ask. Those that left us, have they made it to their place? Yes, we made it. We become a nation. I say thank you. Yes, we're making history. That's what it says. We also come to their land. He's saying thank you to them. I'll stop here because of time. So these are two kings who met each other. The ancestors met each other during the migration route. And because the history is written, the good thing to do, the moral thing to do is if somebody comes to visit you and they leave, you have to go check on them and find out, did they make it where they are going? And this is what these two chiefs are doing. They're making history here. This also goes to prove to you that we're not just telling you stories. It's not just one man, me, making noise. This is something that has been documented. If you notice during the libation that he was pouring, can I get a bottle? Just empty bottle. There's two ways you can pour the wine offering, what we call libation. He had it in his hand and he was pouring it towards him. That tells me that the prayer that he's praying, he wants the prayer to come to him. He wants the prayer to benefit him. It's something that is positive, it's good. So when you're doing that, you want to pour the libation towards you. If it's something, a mishap, it's something that you're praying away, something negative, you pour it away from you. So just looking at him and how he's pouring the wine offering, we can say what he's doing. All what he's saying is positive. He's asking for blessings, he's asking for unity, he's asking for long life. But anytime you see somebody pouring libation and then they're pouring it away from them, maybe they go into war and they're praying for victory. They want the evil to be on the other party. Or Maybe there's a curse that they're praying out of the community. The libation is poured away from you, not towards you. So this is some of the customs in the Torah that we still practice till today. Awesome. So we were at Ile Ife, Ogbomosho, Bonny, and these places are in modern day Nigeria. From that place, we came down southward to a place called Angoni. Angoni is still in modern day Nigeria today. Because it's an old city, we call it the land of the Angoni. Gamashi, the first group that were at Ile Ife, when God Wuli, that's what it means, set off, they came to a mountain range. They observed the mountains went up and down, up and down, up and down. Who knows the country Togo? Who's head of it? How did Togo get its name? So in our language, when something goes up and down, it's to, go, to, go, to, go. So when they got to that mountain range and then they saw that, they named the place Togo. Now we westernized it to Togo, but it's telling us that if you go there, you find a lot of mountain range. So they named the place Togo. So Togo, logo, Togo, logo, and now it's become Togo. But when we were migrating and got there, there was no Togo. It wasn't there. They stopped at Togo so that they could rest, settle down, multiply, grow crops, and get themselves together so they can continue on their journey. Because they were very fruitful when they got to this place, because they were very fruitful, they named the place Anaho. Anaho means that we got pregnant. Usually, if the water is sweet, if you have very good water, the women become very fertile. So they had a lot of children, and they called the place Anaho. There's actually, the Anaho is still there today. It's maintained that name, Anaho. So they settled at Anaho for 70 years, as usual, and Gamashi moved and settled at Nyanao, at the foot of the mountains, and from there they migrated further to what was Ayiwaso. Let me explain that name. It means Ayi stopped on Thursday. That's what the name means. Ayiwaso. Why did they say that? The leader, the person who was leading us, his name was Ayi. So it will be like Morris stopped on Thursday. So Morris Waso. The leader was called Ayi. So to preserve that, we put his name to name the place. And that's how we kept some of the history. So we say Ayi Waso. We stopped on Thursday. This was when the leader said, okay, we are tired, let us rest. So Ayi stopped on a Thursday. So the name of our leader was Ayi Kushi, Ayi the Kushite. The reason he's called the Kushite was because he was a very strong warrior when in Ethiopia. So they called him the Kushite, meaning he was strong. So we kept that name also, Ayi Kushi, Ayi the Kushite. So when you come to Ghana, there's a place called Ayawaso. They've changed it because the British could not pronounce Ayiwaso. It became Ayawaso. So that also tells you about the history. Now, the second group, that was Gad or Gawo. We are Gad. They also came down to Anaho, where we got pregnant. And then they migrated to the banks of a river called Laloi. They named the place Wo, Doku. We are Doku. If you remember, in the morning I told you that anybody with the name Doku means that deliberate marriage was performed. So that tells us that when they got here, one of the leaders must have performed a deliberate marriage. So to remember that, they named the place that. This also goes to show you that we were performing the customs in the Torah without the text of the Torah. So we can get that from the names that we named these places. We did not migrate with a text. We did not have a text. But we kept the customs and we named these places as such, as evidence, so that when we tell the story, we can prove that, see, when we got to Laloi, the Laloi River, I can show you the Laloi River if you come visit West Africa, and I'll show you this is where we called Wadoku. There was a levirate marriage performed there. That is why we named it such. Now Labone, the fire of Bonnie. They also came down the Laloi River, and because their brothers had named the place Wadoku, they named it Po-Doku. Why they did that, I don't know. They just chose that name. Okay. So now we have Gamashi is a Haiwaso. You have Ganwo, they are at Wadoku, and then Labone, they were at Po-Doku. All these places, you can find them on a map. Okay. So, the people at Wadoku said they wanted waters that tasted good. Because if you have a lot of people migrating and then you get a very small source of water, it runs out quickly. Because they're using it not just to drink, but they have to bath, they have to wash things. So when they moved, they found a place of sweet smelling water, which is Nungwa. Nung is water. Gwa means it smells good. So they named the place Nungwa. This place still exists in West Africa. So it means the waters that smell sweet or perfume water. Okay. Now, I think this is the place everybody is waiting for. Talk about the Judah and Levi. All right. Awesome. So there were two other tribes that migrated with the Gans till Togo. So the Gadites were not migrating alone. There were two other tribes, the Levites and then Judah. The reason why you will not find on the map of West Africa, the old map, the reason why you will not find Judah is because they did not call themselves Judah. It's important. So if you go looking for Judah, you will not find it. When I meet people and they want to argue that there was no Judah there, I'm like, you don't know what you're saying because you don't know the history. Okay. So we have the Levites and the Judahites. The Levites went by the name Mosi or Anglon. Anglon means scribes. If you want to learn the ancient Hebrew tongue, you want to learn their dialect because that is what they speak. If you want to learn the ancient Hebrew tongue, you want to follow the Levites or the Judahites. The tribe of Judah went by the name Ajah or Ajavio, A-J-A or A-J-A-V-I-O. Ajah or Ajavio. These two groups are the Judahites. They come from the tribe of Judah. They did not go by the name Judah. Please put that in your spirit. So the Judahites are Ajah or Ajavio. Let's talk about the Levites first. It was not all the tribes of Israel that used their ancestral names for their designation. The Levites did not identify themselves by Levites. Rather, they named themselves after their famous kinsman, Moses. So when you see the Mosi tribe, you're looking at the Levites. Okay. The Mosi people are mainly in West and Central Africa. Anglon, another group that are Levites. Anglon means scribes. They were the ones enacting the Exodus story, the pictures that I just showed you. Another group of Levites who did not name themselves after their ancestors were the Anglon people. Anglon means scribes or writers. These would have been the writers of the original Hebrew Bible. So when you go to the Hashidi shrines, they actually use the pictographs that Moshe used. They can tell you its name, they can tell you the vowels. Just play with it. It's remarkable. Now the Aja or Ajavio are the Judahites. The Aja or Ajavio ruled all of every land before the arrival of the Europeans. Look at Hugh Carplinton's writings, his diaries. He met the king of Judah, or the king of Judah in Old Oyo, and he interviewed him, and he writes it in his diaries. He interviewed the king of Judah, and he asked him, how big is your territory? And he tells him it's from modern-day Ghana all the way to Nigeria. He ruled all those territories. That land that occupied the 5 countries, they were all ruled by the kings of Judah. And Judah is still on the West African continent today. The Aja people gave the name Tado to their homeland, present-day Republic of Benin, Dahomey. Benin was called Dahomey before it was changed to Benin. I explained the name Tado. When we were migrating, we knew that we were migrating with a head, which was Judah. Judah migrated differently. The other tribes, we just get up and we all move. But because there were royalties in Judah, they would send scouts ahead of them. So the scouts will go, make sure that the place is safe before the royal line will actually migrate. Because we don't want them getting into harm. We want to preserve that lineage. So, when we got to Dahomey, that is where we broke off from the Judahites. The Gadites broke off from the Judahites. When we got to Dahomey, the scouts came there first, and they saw that this is a place that we can stay. All the other tribes had arrived, but Judah. So we were all waiting for Judah to arrive. When Judah got there, we said Ta-do. Ta means the head. Do means arrived. So when you go to Dahomey and you see the name Ta-do, it's saying that the head has arrived, meaning that Judah has arrived. So if you go looking for Judah, you will not find it. When I meet people and they want to argue that there was no Judah there, I'm like, you don't know what you're saying because you don't know the history. Okay. So we have the Levites and the Judahites. The Levites went by the name Mosi or Anglon. Anglon means scribes. If you want to learn the ancient Hebrew tongue, you want to learn their dialect, because that is what they speak. If you want to learn the ancient Hebrew tongue, you want to follow the Levites or the Judahites. The tribe of Judah went by the name Aja or Ajavio, A-J-A or A-J-A-V-I-O. Aja or Ajavio. These two groups are the Judahites. They come from the tribe of Judah. They did not go by the name Judah. Please put that in your spirit. So the Judahites are Aja or Ajavio. Let's talk about the Levites first. It was not all the tribes of Israel that used their ancestral names for their designation. The Levites did not identify themselves by Levites. Rather, they named themselves after their famous kinsman, Moses. So when you see the Mosi tribe, you're looking at the Levites. Okay. The Mosi people are mainly in West and Central Africa. Anglon another group that are Levites. Anglo means scribes. They were the ones enacting the Exodus story, the pictures that I just showed you. Another group of Levites who did not name themselves after their ancestors were the Anglo people. Anglo means scribes or writers. These would have been the writers of the original Hebrew Bible. So when you go to the Yeshidi shrines, they actually use the pictographs that Moshe used. They can tell you its name, they can tell you the vowels. Just play with it. It's remarkable. Now the Aja or Ajavio are the Judahites. The Aja or Ajavio ruled all of every land before the arrival of the Europeans. Look at Hugh Carplinton's writings, his diaries. He met the king of Judah, or the king of Judah in Old Oyo, and he interviewed him, and he writes it in his diaries. He interviewed the king of Judah, and he asked him, how big is your territory? And he tells him it's from modern day Ghana all the way to Nigeria. He ruled all those territories. That land that occupied the 5 countries, they were all ruled by the kings of Judah. And Judah is still on the West African continent today. The Aja people gave the name Tado to their homeland, present-day Republic of Benin, Dahomey. Benin was called Dahomey before it was changed to Benin. I explained the name Tado. When we were migrating, we knew that we were migrating with a head, which was Judah. Judah migrated differently. The other tribes, we just get up and we all move. But because there were royalties in Judah, they would send scouts ahead of them. So the scouts will go, make sure that the place is safe before the royal line will actually migrate. Because we don't want them getting into harm. We want to preserve that lineage. So when we got to Dahomey, that is where we broke off from the Judahites. The Gadites broke off from the Judahites. When we got to Dahomey, the scouts came there first and they saw that this is a place that we can stay. All the other tribes had arrived, but Judah. So we were all waiting for Judah to arrive. When Judah got there, we said Ta-do. Ta means the head. Do means arrive. So when you go to Dahomey and you see the name Ta-do, it's saying that the head has arrived, meaning that Judah has arrived. Okay. Anybody here likes black eyed peas? The reason why I ask that is because one trait of the Judahites is black eyed peas. They love it to the core. During the migration route, everywhere that we stopped, all the names that I have mentioned, the first thing they do is plant beans. Everywhere we stop, they will plant black-eyed peas. So the other tribes gave them the name Ayible, means a bean farm. We still call them that today. So when you come to West Africa and someone tells you, I am an Ewe, and you say Ewe, and then you say Ayibe, he's telling you that he's Judah. They are not, I don't like that much beans because I'm the Judah, I'm God. But that is one thing that we notice about the Judahites. They like, so when I came to school here and my college friends, they just love the black eyed peas. I'm like, what is wrong with you Judah people? On the continent, that's what you eat. Here, everything has black-eyed peas. So that is one of the ways that we identify the royal house. We identify Judah. That is why when sometimes I hear my family here say that we are Judah, it has some validity to it. So you're not just making things happen. I've said all of this. So the Levites, the Judahites, the Mosi or the Anglo-Arabs, the Aja or Ajavio, these two are called the Ibe people. But the Ibe people, see, the Levites, they're not as, they are not that much a lover of beings like the Judahites. So they are brothers in crime, but the Ibe people usually is referred to the Judahites. So, I talked about this. Judah can be found in these places, Ghana, Togo, Benin, and Nigeria, but they go by the name Aja. So when you're doing your research, when you're looking, look for the Aja people or the Ajavio. Don't go looking for Judah or Judahite, you will not find them.